We'll call the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board to order for June 16, 2022. Here on the dais, on my far left is Ed McGargy, a voting member. On my right, Jesse Poynton, a voting member.
Good evening.
I'm William Rhodes, Vice Chair, presiding at this meeting in the absence of our chairman. And on my left is our esteemed solicitor, Bill Malone. We have a continued case, and we have three new matters on the agenda. Bill, do you want to talk a little bit about where we're going to go with 22-14?
Sure. So we have the continued case, which should be just exhibits, but 22-14 Sleepy Valley Holdings. There was a request for a continuance. They are represented by Fred Fromhold, who is present here. I also understand that certain neighbors are present as well who would like to comment on the case. The continuance request was made, and depending upon circumstances, the matter should be relisted for either the first meeting in July, or really the only meeting in July, or the only meeting in August. But since there are neighbors here, should anyone want to make any comment prior to presentation of the applicant's case, I would suggest the board accept those comments now. If they want to wait until the applicant puts the case on and then comments because they've now heard the additional testimony, that is fine as well. Mr. Fromhold, can you step up, please?
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Fred Fromhold, representing the applicant Sleepy Valley Holdings, and we had submitted a letter due to unavailability of our expert witness this evening.
And Fred, you had indicated in your letter that you wanted to continue this until the first July date, which again is the only July date. I spoke to you off the record and indicated while the board will do everything they can to accommodate that, depending on scheduling of witnesses, opposition, this and that, is the applicant willing to waive the commencement time to a further date in August in the event that we need to move it to August?
We are, and we can provide you that extension through your August hearing date, whenever that would be determined. That would be quite agreeable. And if it comes up in July, then we would be looking, an advertisement to that. You don't have a specific date. This will need to be re-advertised.
It would be the first Thursday in July or the first Thursday in August. Is that correct, Kelly?
It is July 7th. That is the only scheduled hearing.
And what's the August date?
The August date, I believe is, sorry, bear with me, the 4th.
Okay. And while we were off the record, I was, before we commenced, I also discussed with counsel for some of the neighbors, and I would ask him to please come forward as well.
And just let me add, I'd like to be cooperative with Mr. Eisen and neighbors, and if August works better for them than July, we're very agreeable to doing that.
Mr. Eisen, we, again, welcome tonight. We spoke prior to commencement of the hearing. You did indicate that you have some neighbors who have interest in the matter, whether it be pro or con, that would like to comment. Have you had opportunity to discuss with them whether they would like to put their names on the record and comments tonight, or whether they would like to hear the applicant's case first?
Mr. Malone and members, we would like to place the names and position on whether the neighbors are in favor or against the variance for the Lawson Avenue on the record tonight.
Okay. The only thing I would ask is that when we come back for the additional hearing, that we don't have redundant testimony, that we try to make sure that if you're just saying yes or no, I'm opposed, yes or no, and you give all the reasons to the board for your pro or con, that we don't come back at an additional hearing and have that redundant testimony, just because from a judicial economy aspect and other cases in the township, we have to be careful of that.
Well, the goal tonight, I think, given that Mr. Fromholz, you're willing to give his client a continuance, is not to make a presentation on the substance. We just don't think that would be judicially efficient either, quasi-judicially efficient. So I think we'll settle for putting our names and addresses on the record and saying whether or not we are in favor or are against the opposed.
And then save the
the variance.
discussion as to why for a later date.
Correct.
I would suggest that's a great idea for the board.
And for the members of the public, if you do come up and speak tonight, and then you attend the meeting when the applicant puts their case on, if you have comments in reaction to the case, you're still welcome to do that. We just would ask you not to come up and just restate the same thing. It'll already be in the record.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes.
Okay.
I would suggest you move that one through first then.
Yeah, we will.
And then we'll move to the continued case.
Right, so before we do, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Jess, you want to lead us?
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, so before we get to the continued case then, why, in the interest of so many people apparently who would like to come up, we'll do it now. So we'll move Z22-14 up to the first item. It's all you, right?
Okay. Thank you, members of the neighborhood. Please come up, stand in line behind me. S-E-L-L-I-E-I-S. I took my last one. Okay. Long line of people we have here today. Thank you for coming out and expressing your views on this matter.
The mic on?
Is your
Is your
Microphone
green
on?
light on?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Ellis Eisen, 323 Farwood Road, Wynwood, PA. With respect to the variance requested for Lawson Avenue, I want to register my objection to its grant.
All right, so you're both presenting clients, but you're also presenting testimony on your own behalf, correct?
Correct.
All right, so we're going to have to swear in counsel.
Right. So as far as your testimony, not as a counsel, but as a member of the public, repeat after me. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And again, full name and address for the record.
Sure. Ellis Eisen, 323 Farwood Road, Wynwood, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
We object to the variance on Lawson Avenue. We believe that the applicant is seeking a variance, trying to create a house, to build a house on a lot which is number one, too small, number two, in a already well-settled neighborhood of houses of 75 years of age and older. The variance would have a detrimental effect on the neighborhood because we assume that the style and size, the style and size of the house, the construction materials that will be used will be different from the other houses in the neighborhood. We also have a problem with the fact that the applicant has had a history of having built substandard housing using substandard materials. My personal knowledge is from finding a case concerning First Avenue. In 2017, the builder promised to reconstruct a house at 805 Hearst Avenue. Apparently, it was done in a substandard fashion.
So I'll take care of this, Fred.
The case,
With all due respect, now we're delving a little deep. If you have evidence, physical evidence that you wish to present at the upcoming hearing, in that regard, we'll address the relevance at that point. We'll also address the factual nature of that at that point. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves here, given that I don't know whether we're talking about hearsay, whether whatever we're doing. And again, the point tonight is simply to get the voices on the record as to objections or not objections. You certainly can bring that next time, but we've already now started to
Okay.
expand this beyond what we all agreed to.
the case is filed in Delaware County Common Pleas Court. It was filed in
I'm gonna
2000.
object again. We're going
ahead.
Same objection. So I would
Fair enough.
suggest we bring that evidence to the next hearing.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Hi, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please.
Robert Aubrey Kent at Robert Aubrey Kent, 331 Farwood Road in Wynwood, Pennsylvania. I'd like to echo and establish my objection to the applicant. I'll just say that the character of the neighborhood and the density and age of the homes would be adversely impacted by new and subdivided, more dense construction, but I'll reserve further comment for future times when more testimony is in play.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Repeat after me. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please.
Amy Lesher, 310 Farwood Road, Wynwood, PA.
And Amy, can you move that microphone up and get a little closer?
Yep.
We can hear you, but other people on the
Okay.
video might not be able to.
So I also would like to object to the variance, and I'll save my testimony for later.
Okay, and your objections are of similar color to what we've already
Correct.
heard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Hi.
you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your name and address for the record, please.
Sure, it's Tara Von Andre. It's Vonandreae. Vonandreae. And I'm 305 Farwood Road in Wynwood, Pennsylvania. I also object to the variance, and I'll reserve comments for later.
And your objections are generally the same
Yes.
color? Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Hi, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Carolyn Mansfield. I reside at 309 Farwood Road in Wynwood, Pennsylvania. And along with my neighbors here, I oppose the variance for similar reasons.
Okay, thank you. Hi, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Amanda Schwinn, and I reside at 324 Farwood Road, and I also object. And will save my
For
testimony.
the same
Yes.
reasons? Okay. Just give me 1 second.
Run out of paper?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to keep up. It's at this pace. Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your name and address for the record, please.
Felicia Hurwitz, that's Hurewitz. I'm at 345 Farwood Road.
Okay, and what would you like to say?
I would like to object to the variance for the reasons that were already mentioned, and I wanted to add another reason, which is that we have issues in this township with water runoff, that having more non-permeable surface instead of growth and trees is actually detrimental to the whole neighborhood and could increase flooding.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, hi, welcome. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Eleanor Teresa Harding, Harding. I reside at 327 Farwood Road, Wynwood, PA, 19096. I also object to the variance and for the mentioned reasons.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir,
Hello,
do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your name and address for the
I'm
record.
John Harding. I live at the same residence as the woman before me.
A
32,
lovely woman,
a lovely woman.
a lovely woman.
I had
Look,
a senior moment.
old dog, new tricks, okay,
Yeah.
just remember.
The address is 327 Farwood Road, Winwood. And I also object to the variance for similar reasons as the other people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck tonight.
All right. So, sir, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your name and address?
My
for the
name
record?
is J. Michael Gondek. I live at 3,
Could you spell the last name?
Gondek.
Can I stop you for 1 second? Are you related to Brian Gondek?
Yes.
Okay, and what is
My
your
son.
relationship with him? Okay. I have a close business relationship with him.
Okay.
So I just want to be in full candor that nothing that our relationship has would affect my ability to perform here today. But at the same time, I did want the applicant and all the protestants to understand that I do have a personal relationship with Mr. Gondek.
Right.
Mr. Gondek, what would you like to add to the record?
I also object to the variance on the same basis as been previously mentioned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Gondek, did you give your address? I'm sorry.
No, I did not.
Okay.
316 Farwood Road, Farwood, and Winwood 19096.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your name and address
All right.
for the record, please.
My name is Mildred M. Gondek. Same last name.
And
Same address. Live with
Okay.
that man over there.
You better be careful because you know how I'm going to go with this.
I know. So 316 Farwood Road, and I too object to the variance.
For the same.
reasons
okay.
as stated already.
And do you understand what I indicated earlier
I do.
regarding
I
my
do, Mr.
relationship with
Mullen.
Brian?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Mary Lou Doherty.
All right. Do
I
you,
live at 640 Lawson Avenue, which is just a few feet walking distance to the property in question. I knew the prior owner.
before you start, may I have to swear you in because
Oh, sorry.
there's testimony. So, ma'am, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes,
Okay. And what was the name and address again?
Mary Lou Doherty, resident, a few doors up from the property in question, 640 Lawson Avenue, Haverford Township, PA. Also own a property a few hundred feet away on 701, have a beneficial interest because I'm older, 701 Penfield Avenue, which is a block away, next block, Penfield. Had owned a property at 734 Penfield Avenue, which was sold to Mr. Sposato. It was a solid stone house. He did a beautiful job renovating it, updating it. I was very pleased with what he did. It looked, I would say, a whole lot nicer than when I owned it or was maintaining it. It's an absolute increase in the value of the neighborhood. I had been to a zoning meeting prior to this. It's concerned a property at 732 Lawson Avenue, where the property owner, Simpleton, sometimes known in the neighborhood also as Simpson, had owned a property and had been foolish enough to not keep his taxes separated. So when he wanted to sell off the lots, he had to go through the routine that his porch was too close to the street, his bay window was encroaching, the land was sloping. In other words, it was not that much different than the property in question because that's the geographical condition of Lawson Avenue. It's a curb, it slopes downhill. My backyard slopes downhill so dramatically that you actually have a garage under the house and you have steps going up to the first floor. So the terrain of that neighborhood is on a slope. I've lived on a slope probably for 40 years, and I don't think it's actually been injurious to be on a slope. It may have been healthy to have to walk up and down steps. And I have a great admiration for Mr. Sposato. I consider him a man of his word, and I think he's a very conscientious, hardworking individual. And I do not see how subdividing the lots will be detrimental to the public safety. I also think if you look at the deeds, you'll see that the deeds reflect the fact the original plan of Penfield was for 25-foot lots. So you'll see in the deed, 3 or 4 lots enumerated in the legal description, because when you have a 120-foot lot, you actually have multiple lots from the original plan. Because the original plan was for 25-foot lots, it actually meant there were a lot of semi-detached houses built in Penfield. So although the people in Farwood may have architecturally pleasing, beautiful mini mansions, you can say, comparatively speaking, their geography and lot plans do not compare to the layout of Penfield. Penfield was for more narrow lots when it was originally designed. There are semi-detached houses on 25-foot lots in Penfield. I do not think it has affected the public morals or corrupted the people in the neighborhood to have neighbors on 25-foot lots.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Eisen, putting your hat as counsel back on, is that everyone that you would like to come forward tonight?
Yeah, we had another member of the group, but he has not apparently stayed around. So we'll leave it at that.
Welcome, he's welcome to come back when we hear the case, and you're welcome to come back and submit, more testimony or whatever at that time. Right?
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes.
Yeah, thank you. And we have a busy agenda, so and no one needs to stay. So as you leave, if you're going to chat amongst yourselves, please just go out into the entryway, and so we can keep going.
Understood. And thank you for your time this evening.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Yep.
So this matter is going to be continued to either the July 7th or the August
Right.
4th hearing, dependent upon my discussions with council and their availability.
Okay. Thank you.
And I've advised them that I do need to know that by Monday, so I can make sure everything's appropriate with the office.
Just for the record, I cannot make the July 7th meeting.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so why don't we just pause here? We're going to go on to Z22-12. So if you want to come up, and we'll start in 1 second.
Staying on the record.
Yeah.
Good evening, guys.
So, yeah, right. So I was, Mr. Rafferty and Murphy, right? And McLaughlin? Mr. McLaughlin? Okay. So I was not here at the last meeting, but I did review the entire video of the proceedings. So I am aware of all the testimony that's been submitted to date. I know all 3 of you have been previously sworn in, so keep in mind you're still sworn in, right? We had left the case open in order for you to submit some additional detail as to the existing parking that still is remaining available. In other words, wasn't lost to the tent area or the turf area, right?
Yes, correct.
So the case is open for you to introduce whatever further information you'd like.
Yep. We contracted with the CEA Catania Engineering Associates to verify the spots. That was what they asked us to do at the last meeting. And he did. We have the letter. Did you guys receive these? Yep. And he came down and certified it, measured it, and this is what he sent us.
I don't have the exhibit numbers present from the last
I
hearing.
do. You were up to A8.
All right, so
So
it's
this
going to
will
go
be
10, but I would mark this as A9 then.
This is A9, right?
Yep.
Okay, that's admitted.
A was-
Yep.
Okay. So, Thomas, I just wanted, the calculation that Catania did for you was to verify the dimensional elements of the parking spaces and confirm that there are 72 currently available spaces, correct?
As per the code, I gave him the
Yeah.
code, and he said by the code, that was what he came down and did,
And
yeah.
I just stopped you there because you can't just do nonverbal communication. So yes, no, not nods of the head, not,
It's being transcribed.
because everything's being transcribed.
So-
Yes, what he did was he gave us the verification upon the code of Haverford Township.
Okay. Ed, do you have any questions about the additional letter from, that's exhibit now A9?
No, I do not.
Jesse?
Do you know if he was able to verify that all of the spots are viable spots in that, you know, one is not blocking another, people can make proper turns in and out without, you know, essentially that there's proper maneuverability in the parking lot?
Yes, yeah, he did it according to whatever, I wasn't there when he was doing the measurements, but they had to be, I guess, up to code for him to even, I guess, approve it. But yeah, everything is up to code, up to Haverford Township code, is what it was told.
According to the engineer, Mr. Catania?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Yep.
And so, just to follow up on that, so the exhibit A2, which had been on the record described as the turf dining area plot plan, right? As opposed to A1, which was called the 50-spot plot plan. The A1 shows a series of parallel parking spaces along, I'll call it the creek side of your parking lot.
Yes.
And A2 does not show those. So, right, they just weren't drawn in here.
Correct.
So, Catania did include those calculations, or those spaces as being properly sized and included in the 72.
Correct.
And to Jesse's point, particularly where some of these spots are close to each other, like close to the perpendicular spots, did they discuss or mention any challenges to maneuverability in the parking lot if it's filled with cars?
No, what he said to me was, you know, he could only approve a certain, like, I guess, with spacing and you know, whatever the proper spacing is between spaces and the parking spaces, the dimensions themselves.
Okay, and then leaving this A1 up on the screen, all the way over on this side, before you get to 10, in the small panhandle here, which looks like there are hand-drawn spaces in, right?
Yes.
Are those perpendicular spaces or parallel spaces or some of each?
There's, as far as the little block area, like on the back of the building, there's a, I guess it's not like really, I guess it's not to scale really, but we have a spot, I'm trying to just look at this and, at the loading dock, it's not showing where the loading dock is, there's two spaces in front of the loading dock, if you see that loading dock area there.
Yep.
And there's only one space on the area by the fence.
Below it.
Yes, and there's also a space next to the wall to the right of that, if you'd see it, right past the loading dock.
So you've counted in the 72 spaces, the parking spots in front of your loading dock?
Correct.
And how do you handle deliveries if there's someone parked there?
Well, the deliveries are always in the morning, early in the mornings, so we don't open till.
Before it's open?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any other questions. Ed, do you?
No other questions.
Jesse? No other questions. No? All right. Do you have anything else you'd like to add to the record? You don't have to, right? We were keeping it open for this discussion, so.
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna, you can stand by. We have to see if anyone from the public's here to
Sure.
ask any questions about it. So did anyone from the community who received certified mail would wish to testify in this case? Anyone who got regular mail wish to testify in this case? Anyone else, anyone who wants to weigh in on this case? Okay, so there being no one here for that, we'll close the case and we will schedule it for a vote at our next meeting, which is on July 7. Okay?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And you don't have to be here for the July 7th.
Right.
You can call the Office of Codes on July 8th to find out what the decision was.
Please don't call codes. They won't know what you're talking about.
You can call Kelly Kirk, and I'm going to give you her cell phone number right now.
Ask him that question. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have a question for you, though. Does that mean that we cannot still not have music outside?
That's right, until this decision's
So
come.
that's July 7th, so we're halfway through the summer. But we're allowed to dine out there, but just no music.
Outdoor dining in accordance with the regulations of outdoor dining, which Tom has. I've sent them to him.
Yes,
So meeting all those regulations, then yes.
but no music still.
No amplified music, no hanging out outdoors without table service and being served by a waitress or a server, et cetera. There's a list of requirements that you need to meet to have outdoor dining. Tom has them, so if you're meeting those, then that's what you're allowed to do.
And Kelly, just for their benefit, since it's 11 o'clock is still the cap?
You know what? Sorry, they change depending on how close you are. Bear with me.
I mean, the testimony on the case was that there are property owners on the opposite side of the creek in
I believe if you are
residences.
abutting a residential district, it's actually 9 o'clock. But anyway, it's all in the regulations I sent Tom. So if you want to just look at those, if you have any questions, give me a call. Okay?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Right. Okay. Let me just switch my paperwork here for a second. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to call the next case, which is case Z22-13. This is Amazon Retail LLC as applicant and equitable owner by way of lease of 403 Westchester Pike, Havertown, Pennsylvania, DC folio number 2202-012-9700, who seeks a variance from the provisions of section 182-701.f1 small b1 to permit a net signage area of 103.05 square feet where 50 feet is the maximum.
130.
Yeah, to permit a net signage area of 130.05, square feet, where 50 feet is the maximum permitted, and 108.5 square feet is existing. The subject property is located at the Lanark Shopping Center in Zone C5, and is located in the second ward. Welcome back. Do you want to introduce yourself for the record?
Yes, good evening, Board. Bryce McGuigan of Begley, Carlin, and Mandio here on behalf of the applicant, Amazon Retail LLC.
Bryce, we've had some discussions prior to today's hearing, at which time you indicated you preferred to incorporate the record from the prior hearing solely to make the revision of the actual signage of the, proposed sign. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And have you determined what you believe the minimum signage would be in order to provide relief to your client?
Yes, the number that we're requesting today is 130.05 square feet, and we've arrived at that number briefly, may I?
Please.
We've arrived at that number first because pursuant to our last hearing, you've seen this, the images of this previously. This is the smallest sign that Amazon Fresh has used on one of its buildings. However, what we've also done since the prior hearing is we've done a little bit more work in terms of reviewing the local area. And what we have done is we've taken the opportunity to look at other similarly situated businesses within the Lanark community within this zoning district.
And how would you compare your proposed signage with the other signage that you looked at?
The proposed sign I would submit fits almost, it's almost the median, it's almost right in the middle. Specifically, some of the signs that we looked at were the Acme, which is approximately a mile down the street on Westchester Pike, as well as the Giant, which is across the way in the Quarry Center, and those are respectively 126 square feet and 136 square feet.
Which is which?
The Acme is 126 and the Giant is 136.
In terms of illumination, has there been any change in the applicant's proposed illumination since the prior hearings?
No, the only change would be that the foot candle plan has been revised downward. Previously, there were 0 foot candles at the property line or anywhere close, so now that number is drawn closer to the building.
And there was a closing time for the illumination?
Yes, there is. I believe that, I'm not sure if that's been 100% established.
If you want to question your witness for a second, take a step aside and come back and tell me.
Yes. I believe that time is 11 o'clock p.m. It will close whenever the store closes shortly thereafter. And obviously, we work with the township on that issue. So if the township requires alternate hours, we will adjust that.
And Bryce, do you have, and I believe you do because I'm about to pull them open, exhibits establishing the reduction of signage and everything we've talked about so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're going to go off the record for 1 minute.
Okay.
Good. Great. Mr. McWigan, while we were off the record, we marked 4 exhibits. 1A1 is entitled Set Illuminated Channel Letters. Number 2 is also entitled Set Illuminated Channel Letters with the following concept design. A3 is a flat face replacement for one existing monument sign. And A4 is the foot candle plan. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Bryce, I was looking at my notes. I just want to make sure that we're getting this right. Store hours close at 10?
I believe so, yes. Is that really? Yes.
Good. And illumination at night would go off when the store closes so that people aren't pulling in thinking it's still open? So,
Correct. That is correct.
And I believe that one of the conditions that we had discussed in the previous application was an agreement that other than a relatively small, let's call it less than a foot size sticker of the store hours on the door, there would be no other signs on the facade of the building, including the windows.
Correct.
Okay, and that if we were to approve that condition, as well as the turning off the illumination at 10 o'clock would be presumably acceptable, and still be acceptable?
That would be satisfactory, yes.
All right, do you want to present these or talk a little bit about the new drawings?
Sure. I'll have I believe my witness come up and maybe say a few words and just.
I'll swear you back in because the other case was closed, if you don't mind.
No problem.
So do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your name and address for the record, please.
Gary Potts, address is 58171 Dragonfly Court in Osceola, Indiana.
Gary, is it P-O-T-T-S?
It is, and it's
Okay.
Garry.
Okay. And you're here in what capacity?
I am here as a sign expert representing Atlas and the client Amazon Fresh for their
Okay,
signs.
and I'll just quickly qualify you. You were previously qualified as an expert witness in the prior case, correct?
Correct.
And since that time, has your licensure been revoked, suspended, or otherwise
No.
inhibited in any way for you to provide testimony in the same fashion?
No, it is not.
Okay, and you're here as a sign expert?
Correct.
Okay.
That's fine.
Any objection? Okay. All right, Gary, how are
All
you?
right. So we are, just to keep it brief, we talked about this sign before. We looked at the size of the signs for the other clients. I think before we looked at what would work for Amazon, we're gonna look at what also works in the community. With the setback from the property line for the shopping center, it's not like it's right on the road, so we were looking for what we need in order to be visible and also keep it in line with the other community standards. So we feel this is the minimum relief that we would need in order to maintain good visibility and to have a viable business operation here for the grocery store.
Okay, and just to make sure, on Exhibit A3, which is the monument sign depiction, the idea would be that the space currently used, or most recently used, for the LA Fitness Sports Club signage, you would fit in the same footprint of that?
That is correct.
Okay, and anything else you want to add about that?
Nope, it'll just be just a simple change out.
And that's not an illuminated sign, right?
Gooseneck?
Yeah, okay.
Exterior illumination.
Even though the picture does not depict any illumination, exterior illumination of the sign. But you think it's not, it's illuminated not from the inside, but from the outside, shining down on it?
So I would say whatever's there, we're not going to change anything. I don't know what the existing condition is to the interior. We were just going to change the panel out. So if it's illuminated, it would remain illuminated. If it's not, that would not change.
Okay. Ed?
Is that sign visible from the highway?
Yes.
So why is it important that your sign on the building has to be visible from the highway?
Well, it's important, and thank you for the good question. It's important not only for once the initial Amazon Fresh is seen at the highway, it's also for wayfinding once they get to the plaza. So it's important to be able to see where exactly the store is, where the entrance is. Once they get on the site, there's still a substantial setback from the building to the traffic.
And that's true of most shopping centers, but how many stores are in the shopping center?
I believe I drove by, I think there are 3 maybe?
Yeah, so it's not kind of hard to miss.
And if I may, I believe one of the other issues here is it is a long facade. The way the Amazon Fresh sign works is it's a stacked logo and it's right above the door. So it helps to direct customers to the actual entrance of the building.
But they won't be driving fast, like the testimony was that they'd be a hazard in the record here. You're not driving fast in the parking lot, I assume, so.
No, you will not be driving, hopefully not. They will not be driving fast in the parking lot.
What was the sign that was denied? Size?
164, I believe, 165.
Now, your attorney presented some information, so I'm not sure, is it your?
I think what we can do is, did you hear your attorney present information regarding this application?
I did.
Incorporation of the prior record.
Correct.
Do you understand what your attorney has said?
Yes,
Do you incorporate that and accept that as your testimony in whole?
I do.
Okay. On the existing signs, you made no record review of the files to determine whether there was any hardship provided by the other signage, the signs that you had studied?
The other, like the Giant and the Acme, for example?
Yes. Like the Acme sign, there was an existing sign there that pre-existed the ordinance.
For the granting of the variance?
Right. So it didn't need a variance for that.
It was awarded a variance as far as I believe.
But that was probably for the, I don't know, but I'm just saying there's extenuating circumstances, each site is different.
Well, so I don't have the decision in front of me, but that was a variance that was awarded. I believe it was to the ShopRite. I think it was a ShopRite that previously existed before the Acme. So that was a variance that was awarded.
But there was another sign before the ShopRite on the big pedestal. Okay. Do you know that those signs that you studied, were they put in before or after the commissioners had revised our sign ordinance and didn't make it bigger for C5 districts, the signs?
I guess I don't understand the question.
There was a sign ordinance that was voted on and
Okay.
not too far back. I don't know the exact dates. but it was done before those signs that you're questioning. It was done after those signs that you're questioning. So in other words, those signs were approved before the new ordinance, and the commissioners didn't feel it necessary to enlarge the sign requirements for a C5 district in this new ordinance.
Okay.
Okay? So you weren't aware of that?
I'm aware that they were granted a variance for their requests. So that was whatever if the ordinance
A variance
changed.
for an ordinance that no longer exists, it had been revised since then.
Had it been revised to give them a greater relief or less?
What I'm saying is, they revised the ordinance,
Mhm.
looking at the C5 district, and the commissioners did not increase the size of the sign in that new ordinance above what you're asking
Above the
for.
50. Okay.
Right. I think the 50 is even an increase. That's the increase. Okay, I have no other.
Okay, Jesse?
The Acme and the Giant, do they also have monument signs at the road?
Yes.
And let's see, I believe the previous testimony talked about the need for the larger sign was for visibility, so that when somebody's driving by. I guess we're kind of talking about more now. It seems to be it's a little bit more about once you've already arrived on the site. Is that correct?
It's a combination of the two, but yes, the main gist of the wall sign is once you get on the site to have that visibility or wayfinding.
I think I may have asked this before, and I don't know if maybe you had a chance to think about it further, but I think I asked something along the lines of, does somebody drive, is a grocery store, to me, seems like more of I know I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm not driving down the road and all of a sudden see a grocery store and stop. So I don't know if you could elaborate on that any further as far as like how grocery stores are treated, as, for the need for visibility and the need
Sure.
for a larger sign.
Well, I think the fact that Amazon Fresh is this is a new location for them. People do not know that they are there. So it serves a marketing standpoint as well. So for visibility, they do need that. And yes, most people do particularly get in their car and they know that they are going to go to Giant, or they're going to go to Acme, or they're going to go to Amazon. But if they do not know that Amazon even exists, this is to let them know where we are. And then in the future, whether they decide to go at that time or whether they decide to try it on their next trip to the grocery, that's the main point of the signage for the wall sign.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Okay. And I don't have any other questions. I appreciate the time that you guys came back and the efficiency of incorporating the old record to let this move more quickly. I don't know if we'll get to a decision tonight, but if we don't, we'll try to get to it at the July 7 meeting.
I think July 7th is more appropriate so that Jessica and Bob can also read the transcript and participate, since they were involved in the prior hearing. I know Ed's,
Jessica was.
all right, I know Ed's not available for that one, but we'll coordinate it and we will either have a decision. I would suggest that July 7th or the first August hearing.
Thank you.
Well, given the fact that we are once a month, we try to get through as many decisions as we can rather than suspend another month. But sometimes we have other new cases and decisions and continued cases. So we'll see what we can do.
Thank you very much.
And Bryce, you're okay if we have to go to August?
If that's what the board has to do, then of course we're okay with that.
Very well, thank you.
We appreciate your time and thank you for having us here again.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, don't leave yet. I just have to make sure no one from the public, right? Okay, so I will look around and say, did anyone here receive certified mail regarding this case? Wish to testify? Anyone receive regular mail who wishes to testify? Anyone else who didn't get any mail wish to testify? Okay, there being no one here, we'll close the case and render a decision as at the next meeting, or in the worst case, in August. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brett.
Okay. Let me just, again, switch around my docs. Okay, so our next case is case Z22-15, St. John Neumann, Neumann, Roman Catholic Church, owner of 380 Highland Lane in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, DC folio number 220500042501, who seeks a variance from section 182-602.C8 to exceed the permitted impervious surface requirements of 40% to allow a total impervious increase of approximately 2,800 square feet, which is less than 1% over that which now exists on the 8.388 acre net property, and a variance from 182-707.B to provide approximately 7 fewer parking spaces than required for the combined church and school uses of the property. The property is zoned INS institutional and is located in the 5th Ward. Right, you're here on behalf of the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Good evening, Fred Fromhold. I'm here on behalf of St. John Neumann Roman Catholic Church, and I have with us this evening the pastor of the church, Monsignor Matz, as well as the principal of the school, the parochial school at St. Coleman St. John Neumann, and Kelly Seminara. Also, we have with us the civil engineer from Cairns and Associates, Robert Newton, and Frank Tavani from FDA Associates, our traffic engineer. In its simplest form, this is an application to allow the parish school to install a temporary trailer to accommodate an anticipated spike in enrollment come this September. The enrollment in the school is in the neighborhood of 350. It's anticipated it'll be in the neighborhood of 390. And this temporary classroom, this modular classroom would accommodate, or modular building would accommodate 2 classrooms for the additional students.
Fred, good evening. Let me just get a couple technicalities out of the way. You're requesting a temporary variance, is that correct?
Well, we anticipate that it is temporary, but we're not sure how long temporary will be.
Right, so my question would become, if you determine that there is a need for a permanent structure, is your client of the understanding they will have to come back here and explain why it has to become a permanent structure?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I should have also said I left out our most important witness, John Kirk, or John Knott, I'm sorry, Kelly. John Knott, who is the chair of the committee that has been assembled recently at the church to assess these issues, address them, and resolve them.
Okay, and so the zoning board, as you know, better than I do, has certain requirements that they have to follow, and leaving an open-ended temporary variance can cause issues. Is there a time frame in which the applicant would be comfortable to say this is the outside time without having to come back for an extension of the temporary variance if needed?
Yeah, we've discussed that, Mr. Malone, and thinking in the neighborhood of 5 years or so. The preference, obviously, from the school's position would be to have the maximum flexibility. But the assessment, and Mr. Knott can go into more detail, but the assessment needs to be made over the next few years, and depending upon variables like economy,
Is there a minimum time frame where your client would feel comfortable saying, if we don't have answers within X period of time, and I'm not suggesting a time, 2 years, that you would come back and ask for an extension and explain the status and where you are in the process? I'm not necessarily suggesting that's the year. I'm just saying, is that something that your client is acceptable to?
That is a reasonable question. I would prefer not to be the one to give you the answer. I'd rather Mr. Not give you the answer to that. But just preliminarily, the assessment is going to be made over the next couple of years to see whether this is indeed a spike, in which case there need not be an expensive analysis with architects and everyone else of an addition, how it would be installed, going through the building and development process. There may well be a land development plan, and certainly we could come back to the zoning board, although the effort would be to avoid the need for any zoning relief.
And just for clarification, and then I'll sit back and be quiet for a while, I guess, is we have two things we're looking at. One is the impervious coverage, which is less than 1%. Is that correct?
It's actually it's less than 0.4%.
Okay,
It's
and what is the
0.38
applicant's position with regard to that?
I'm sorry?
What's the applicant's position with regard to a 0.4% impervious?
It's about in our application, we had anticipated it could be upwards of 2,800 square feet. It's actually 1,409 square feet, which is 0.38%.
I'm not suggesting anything,
And
but is the applicant arguing that this is a de minimis variance
we
request?
believe it is de minimis, yes, and we're certainly providing stormwater management for it, and we think it's a sensible way to accommodate this need.
How about with regard to the parking? I think part of the application, which is important here, would decrease the available parking by proposed 7 spots. Is there a way to reconstructure that or refigure that so that there would be less than loss of 7 total spots, maybe something like a 4 or 3?
Well, we have looked at it, and what we have, if I can just comment on the need for parking. If there's anything that this school doesn't need, it's parking. There is a sea of unused parking Monday to Friday, all during the school day. There's more blacktop at St. Coleman, St. John Neumann, and the reason for that is that both the church and the school share the same property. So we would be reducing the parking to 222 spaces if you take these 7 offline for whatever that duration is. The school has about 40 staff members, and you have daily mass early in the morning, but other than that, there are next to no cars
This is
there.
going to sound,
So we have about 100.
sound very silly. Your children don't drive there and park there during the day because?
Well, they are not of driving age.
Thank you. I want to make a clear record. That's
Okay,
all.
it's a pre-K through elementary school. So what we have is a need for fewer than 50 spaces, and we, with the reduction of 7, would have 222. And the luxury that this site has is it has its school and its church using the combined parking. So the church gets that advantage on Sunday for Sunday Mass. They have all of the parking that is provided to meet the school's requirement on top of what's required to meet the church's requirement available to it.
And I know this is separate and apart, but does the church have any issues with parking during funeral, weddings, or Sunday Mass services?
Okay. The answer to that is no, and there is a surplus of parking. And Monsignor Matz is here, and if I'm wrong, he'll correct me. The only time when you have that the lot filling up is Christmas and to a certain extent at Easter. But those are the 2 days during the year. The rest of the days there's a fully a large amount of parking. And these 7 spaces, by the way, are the most remote to the church. They would be among the last spaces that anyone who's going to church would park in because they're the farthest away from the church. So we don't believe that there's going to be, they would feel any loss of these spaces. We could probably lose 100 spaces, 150 spaces, and it wouldn't affect the school. In terms of the church, you also asked for funerals, and that is the one time where there is a potential for a conflict. If you had an extraordinarily large funeral where you would move in the direction of filling up the lot. And in talking to Monsignor about that, that occurs maybe every few years or so, depending if somebody young and with a lot of friends passes away, you may get a large funeral there, in which case there would be coordination with the school on that under normal circumstances. So there certainly would be going into the future that type of coordination, but that's an extraordinarily rare situation.
Okay, looks like you're bearing gifts.
I do have some gifts, and I don't want to belabor them, but I just wanted
Yeah,
to.
that's fine. Are they marked already?
Get them in. They are pre-marked, and I have packages for each of you, and I can just go over what's in.
Thanks. Kelly, do you want to keep one copy as the official? Okay. All right, Fred, you want to just quickly introduce the exhibit list and what these items are, and then you can call your witnesses?
Thank you, I will. The A1 is the deed to the property. A2 is the zoning exhibit plan, and we will go over that with you. There is also a large copy of A2 at the back of your documents, so you don't need to look at the 11 by 17 copy, which is also among your documents. But A2 does show the two areas or the one area in question on the site, and then there is some marginal information that is in that red box, and I'll go through that with you in a moment. We also have A3, which is an aerial photograph. This is a Google image aerial, and it shows the property and its context in the area. It shows the corner of the lot where the trailer is going, and I want the board to be aware there is currently a trailer in that area. That was installed a couple of years ago without any zoning relief being necessary, but a permit was obtained for it. And there was some compensation in impervious cover that equaled the square footage of the impervious cover of the trailer, so no zoning relief is necessary. But what is now proposed is a larger trailer, which is 27.33 feet by 66 feet, and for a total of 1,804 square feet of what I'll call floor area of the trailer, okay? But the trailer, where it's located, overlaps these 7 parking spaces, and that's why they would be taken offline currently. So that the actual net increase in impervious cover is 1,409 square feet. And there's a table on A2 that shows all that. As I said, A3, which is the aerial, shows there is a lot of vegetation, trees that screen the trailer from views of the adjacent properties to the side, the single family, and Mill Ridge condominium, which is to the rear of the church. A4 are 4 photographs of the relevant portion of the property, and they are all captioned. If you look at the first photograph on A4, you can see where the existing trailer is. And as I said, that is a trailer that is not quite as long or as wide as what is proposed. The trailer that is proposed will overlap into those parking spaces that are adjacent to the trailer.
So just so I understand, this existing trailer for which you have a permit and did not require variances,
right,
that shows a wooden staircase that comes down into the parking spot, that's staying, and then you're
No,
building?
no, that's being removed.
Being removed
That's
entirely?
being replaced.
Okay.
And A2 will show the footprint of the existing trailer and the larger footprint of the replacement trailer.
And on the,
And by the way, that existing trailer was used as a faculty lounge, so faculty could spill over into it. Wasn't used for children, students.
okay, and then the space that's between, on the third picture in A4, the space between the actual building and this temporary one that you see here, that open space will that be covered by the new trailer?
There will be a 10-foot separation, so the new trailer will be, I believe, slightly closer to the building than this trailer, and it shows on A2.
Okay.
But that's a good point. But there will be a 10-foot separation between the two, and it will be in that area between the existing building and the trailer where a handicapped ramp will come out the back of the school building and wrap around and in that area and to the doors of the that modular classroom. And it is, and the next and last photograph, 1A4, is a view looking out the back of the school building towards Mill Ridge Condominium and the trees that are back in that area. And it is in the area that is immediately adjacent to the parking where there's a grass area, a very long grass area along the rear of the property, where it is noted on A2 that that is an area for stormwater management, so that the stormwater that is generated by this 1,409 square feet of additional impervious surface will be managed in accordance with township codes. Permits will need to be obtained for that. The next is A5, and that's just a sample photograph of what the trailer building will look like. When we filed the application, the trailer that had been earmarked for the school was a little bit larger, 70 feet long, 28 feet wide. This is a little bit smaller trailer, and that has been earmarked by the school, and that is the design that is shown on A2, those dimensions. The next exhibit, I think, is an important exhibit. This is A6, and this is a parking analysis. And what's in white on A6 is essentially what was submitted as an exhibit in 2011 when we were here before and presented the request for variance to the board, and the board granted that variance, which is our last exhibit. I've included the board's decision in that case. But getting back to A6, this is the parking analysis currently. And what's in yellow really is what's changed by virtue of what we're proposing here. So when we add an 1,800 square foot building, we have increased the required parking for the school from 48 to 50. So 50 parking spaces are required. And why is that? It's because the code requires one space for every additional 1,000 square feet of floor area. And the 1804 brings the total floor area just a tad above 49,119, but that gets rounded upwards to 50 parking spaces. So that our parking required is 228 spaces. Then on the next line shows the parking actually provided. The plan that we're showing A2 indicates there are 209 spaces in the sea of parking, but there are an additional 20 spaces along the driveway that extends from the school's or the church's parking lot out to Radnor Street. which is on the side. The church fronts on Highland, but Radnor goes down the side. There's a very long driveway where 20 spaces are located. So those 20 spaces were required to be added, and so we have a total of 229 spaces available in the church lot and along that drive, all of which are available for use by the church and school. Taking the 7 spaces that the trailer will overlap offline reduces the required parking to 222. But you can also see when you go up that under the code, the church requires 172. So when the church is really demanding parking, you've got 222, you'll have 222 spaces even after this plan would be implemented, assuming it would be approved by the board. You'd have 222 spaces or 50 more spaces for use by the church. And of course, during the week, when the church really isn't placing any demand, you've got those 222 spaces that meets the 50 space parking that's required just for the school. So the school itself requires 50 spaces, which certainly accommodates their use. And under the circumstances, it seems that perhaps this variance would even be more de minimis than the impervious variance. And we submit both are de minimis, but we believe that there is a hardship in that responding with a significant building addition, expensive building addition to design and to construct that may or may not be warranted based on the actual experience over the next few years here. It certainly seems to be a sensible approach for the school and certainly their committee to proceed in a careful way and really determine whether such a project is warranted. In which case, if it is warranted, I think you'll hear from Mr. Nutt, they would be back and seeking whatever permits or development approvals would be required from the township. I had then the other A7 was a traffic report that was done by Frank Tavani while the school was fully in session, and I think his observations were what we expected they would be, that all the levels of service in and about the school are very good, but Mr. Tavani can tell you about that. Then have his curriculum vitae as well as Mr. Newton's CV. And then the last exhibit I have is this board's decision from March of 2011, March 17th, 2011. So with that introduction, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I think the testimony of our witnesses would substantiate what I have said to you, but we're prepared to call all of them.
Okay. Okay, so are you going to call witnesses? You wait for questions, and then if they go to certain, you'll call witnesses as appropriate to answer the question?
Sure, I'm happy to handle this however the board would like.
You think, just go with Fred for
I
now?
would go with Fred, and then I would simply call up the 3 witnesses, the Monsignor, Mr. Devani, Mr. Newton, and ask if they adopt and accept Fred's comments as their testimony.
Okay. All right.
Well, Monsignor, we didn't know that you would be testifying tonight, but you are. So,
Well, okay.
and if you would be sworn
Like them to affirm.
Yeah.
or
yeah.
affirm?
Okay. Monsignor, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. And your name and address, just for the record, please?
Monsignor Michael Matz, EZ, 380 Highland Lane, Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania.
And Monsignor, you live at the rectory?
I do.
And you heard the exchange between the board and myself, particularly as it relates to use of the parking lot, the demand that is placed on the parking lot by the church, also by the school, and those times during the year where there might be a special demand such as Christmas and Easter and need for parking.
Yeah.
Is what I said substantially correct?
It is.
Okay, do you care to either edit it in any way or add to it in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess on a weekend, we offer 6 masses. That's probably more than most parishes in the area. So we have a Saturday night, a Sunday night, and 7:30, 9, 10:30, 12. So because of the number of masses, the parking lot never really gets all that full for any of those services. Special liturgies that might occur, say during Holy Week, they're like Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday. They're nice crowds, but it's not like bursting at the seams. So the parking is usually fine for all of that.
Is the
as
school
well.
in session during those
No,
times?
they're not.
How about special events? Carnivals?
Yeah, we don't really
fairs, things of that event?
we don't really have our version of a carnival is it's a garage sale, but it's all inside.
Do you have substantial parking for that?
Yeah, we do.
That's my alma mater, St. Denis, that has the.
Yeah, they have
Okay, so Monsignor, you essentially adopt the testimony of your counsel as if it were your own, for the record?
Yes.
All right, so we may come back, but let's see where the questions go, and maybe we don't need to bother you.
Okay.
Ed, you want to go first?
Yeah, a few questions. I'm looking at the photographs in A4, the exhibits. I'm seeing picnic tables taking up other parking spots. Can you explain?
Yeah, the picnic tables are out there. There are still, even with those picnic tables, another 150 unused parking spaces throughout the lot. The children use that area, and my understanding is that the older children, in the highest grade, will eat out there during weather that permits eating out there. So they were there at the time the photographs were taken. We left them there, and with that, there is, you can see there's nobody even parking in that area. So the school really has the luxury of being able to go out and use its playground. When I was in elementary school, we were playing on the blacktop too, and in between certain cars. There weren't as many cars in the 50s, but still you had some people parking there. And here you just can have that area open, and most of the parking that occurs for the teachers, and Kelly Seminara can corroborate this, as Ken Frank Tavani, occurs in the front driveway between the church and Highland Avenue. That's where they've traditionally parked over the years. There is some parking in the back, but relatively little. And in fact, there is actually an area that's cordoned off a little bit more where if there are cars that are parking, they park at just a slight more distance away, but it's all perfectly convenient to the school. And there is an area that I think was in one of the photographs, that perhaps the last photograph in that package, that shows, in
A4?
And it wasn't. You can see it on the aerial. If you look at the aerial, A3, you will see in that little, and yeah, that shows it well. If you look out the A3, Millridge is on the bottom of that paragraph. This Google image is prior to the temporary trailer going in, the one that's there now. But in that little area that has that U-shaped drop-off area for the school, there's an entrance at the back there. They like to keep that open. That facilitates the pickup and drop off of students into school, which is what, from a traffic standpoint, is most often problematic for schools, particularly for pickup in the afternoon, where people get there and they wait for their kids in the morning. It's a little bit more random, where people will come, drop off the child, and then be on their way. In the afternoon, often they come and they wait so that they're there when school lets out. But Mr. Tavani had looked at that. He was there during those critical times and observed how it operated. In fact, even in his report, he has a suggestion as to how they can actually improve the current condition that's included in his report. But there is ample room for aisles, drop-off aisles, pickup aisles here. So you can see just in that area all of the parking. So keeping that area right behind the school building open really does facilitate use of that as a play area for the students.
One a little far afield from my original question. The
I'm
question
sorry.
was about the picnic tables.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that those would only be placed there when there wasn't a need for additional parking? They're not. permanent?
They're not there on weekends? No, and that's a good question. Kelly, if you, or John, either one can, if you'd come and be sworn. Yeah, John, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, John.
Hey, Howard.
Repeat after me. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. And your full name and address for the record, please?
My name is John Knott, Knott. I live at 149 David Drive, Haverford Town.
Okay. So, John, you heard Ed's question?
Sure, I did. Sure. I serve as co-chair of the St. Coleman John Neumann School Advisory Board. And as to the question, right, they're temporary in nature, so they're movable. And
They left there over the weekend?
not to my knowledge.
Yeah, so they're not really a hindrance to the parking, because whenever you needed parking, they wouldn't be there.
Correct.
Okay. The plans, a lot of the exhibits that I'm seeing, like A2, label one of the, and right in the center of the thing, it says proposed addition. Can you please elaborate on why it says proposed?
I haven't yet explained A2 to you, and that really is
Okay.
the key exhibit. So if I can explain that, the base of A2, most all the information on A2 is from the 2012 Land Development Plan. We took that plan and we added to it just a few things. We added to it where some impervious is removed in green. That actually is the impervious that was removed in connection with the temporary trailer that's in there now. So that was calculated as having not been there. And the temporary trailer is that little dark rectangle that's in the middle of the larger beige rectangle, the larger beige rectangle representing the new trailer. That's the dimensions of the new trailer. So we've shown what's changed. That impervious being removed, the new trailer going in, the handicapped ramp coming out of the back of the building and going around and being accessible to the side of the trailer that faces the school building. And there's also a second ADA exit that is out the back, just for emergency purposes if you need to go out the back, but that's not what anyone could use. But if there was ever a situation where you didn't want to evacuate that particular modular building in the direction of the school building, you could get out via that access that leads down towards the existing playground. And you can see where the spaces are overlapped about 6 feet or so. In the area of the overlap, we're not adding to the impervious cover. So there's an efficiency in terms of impervious surface in overlapping those spaces. So We could have overlapped them more, but thought it just made more sense to keep the modular about 10 feet away from the building and then provide the stormwater management for the 1,409 square feet. In the back of this box is the area for the stormwater management system area that, as I said, would be designed to accommodate per code all of the additional impervious surface that increase to 1,409 square feet. There are 27 spaces along the driveway in the front between the church and Highland Avenue, and the faculty uses those spaces as well as some of the spaces that are also behind the building when those spaces are needed.
So you have no plan to build anything, right? That plan approved this proposed addition? I'm still lost.
Okay. This plan was built. It was in 2012. The base of this plan is all matched. Okay. So what we tried to do is just that this is kind of a simple situation where we have a trailer and the access ramp to it. How do we get that in? Well, it would have been a permit, but for the technical parking spaces that aren't needed, but the code doesn't say that you get a break because your school and your church are sharing the parking and benefit from each other's parking. So, since we are impervious cover, which we are increasing that by, as I said, 0.38 of.
Maybe simplify it. So everything that's labeled as proposed is now really actually constructed at this point on A2.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's good.
So even where it says new stormwater system, that's been constructed?
No. Within the box,
Uh-huh.
within the red box, everything is there except what's in color. What's in color by way of the ramp and the trailer. And the stormwater management has not been installed. That would be installed as part of this. This green area is now grass. That was made grass when this smaller trailer went in 2 years ago.
Okay, that was where I was confused. So where it says concrete removed, that has already been removed and the grass has been put in?
That is correct.
Okay, I understand that.
Rather than go through a $10,000 survey for this, it seemed to be a way that we could present it with some explanation to clear up the actual questions that you would have, to kind of show at a glance what is required. The red box has been added. Those other calculations were all part of the original plan. What's in the red box in the lower right-hand corner of A2, those are the new calculations. And that shows the reduction of the green area and the addition of the ramp square footage and the building square footage.
And it mentions drive parking. 0 square feet. Got it. Okay.
I had the same thing until I looked out to the right source.
Yep, got it.
Okay, now looking at A4 and the third photograph, you can see it fairly clearly that there is a gap between the parking island and where this trailer will go.
Right.
And I'm assuming that's for drainage, that you're going to put your trailer over top of that drainage.
The trailer, I don't know the answer to that. We will be submitting a plan that will show how the trailer is, and this area is being drained. I don't think there will be any interference with water in terms of its moving in the direction that it now moves and getting to the point that it now gets to. That may be, the trailer could be
The skirting could be lifted up, the
I
parking lot's
understand.
gonna be there.
The answer is, I just don't know.
Okay.
But it's an interesting question I hadn't thought of.
Okay. The other question I have is, in that drawing A2 again, we'll go back, and you're showing now that shaded area, that's gonna be a staircase?
The dark area, the area that appears to be a brown color,
Over top of the parking spots, yeah.
over the top of the parking space, that is a ramp, a handicap accessible ramp that will allow exiting from, there's a door on that side of the trailer as well. So there are doors on the school side of the trailer, between the school building and the trailer, where the students will go into the trailer. That will be their normal means of access to the trailer. They will not be accessing it from that ramp out the back. That's just an emergency.
Yeah, but you still have to be, I was just wondering,
And by the way, that's over McCann.
no, the question we were looking at, when I was looking at the drawing, is why wasn't any parking spots being proposed there, parallel parking as opposed to, or angle parking? There seemed to be enough room, but the answer may be that that stairway needs to be left open for emergency access.
Well, I guess there is nothing on the, what I'll call it, the northwest side of that stairway. I mean, you could squeeze a parallel parking space there, but frankly, there's never a need to put a car there.
Well, not needing to put a car there and having it available are two different things.
I understand.
Yeah, so it's feasible that you may be able to put as many as 3 parallel parking spots.
I don't think so. I think you can probably get one in there.
With the extra.
With the ramp, yeah. Because you've got, it's probably, it's a very generous parallel parking spot, but I don't think there's enough for two. If you look at those.
No, I meant from the beginning of beside the ramp, one car, and in the middle, one car, and then at the end, towards the traffic island, another car, all the way up.
He's pointing out the traffic island sticks out so far that you could queue up parallel.
Well, there's a driveway there that is a two-way driveway, and you can see it in the aerial A2. So this plan preserves that flow around the school and church building for access.
Oh, sure, I wasn't even suggesting that you would block the drive aisle. I'm just looking at the drawing, looking at that traffic island, looking at the amount of space available beyond the edge of the trailer. There looked like there was room to park cars in a different fashion.
Okay, perhaps you could,
Maybe I'm confused. Right here, right here.
I think you would find that you could park a car there, but I don't think you'd want to park a car there on a parallel basis. I think we could show. Could we show a space?
I think the question, Fred, is whether it's going to be needed, whether it's going to be available. Is the applicant able to make that available as parking just as part of this application in the rare event that you would need those extra spots? Or extra spot?
Right, so Christmas, Easter, if you kind of needed a spot, could you put a car there? And the answer is probably yes. And people are creative when it comes to finding a place to park when there isn't a place to park. And if there is a kind of an open area there where they could pull in without blocking that lane of travel, yeah, they could probably park there. They could probably get a spot.
So just the idea that instead of needing 7 spots, it might not only need 4.
Can I make a correction? It's really 6 spots that we're down, not 7.
Because there's a staircase in one of them, right?
Now, it's just the numbers work out to 6. When you look at A6, we're down 6 spots, not 7.
But one of them is already impacted by an existing wooden staircase that comes out of the existing trailer.
Yeah, and frankly, I wasn't aware of that, and I don't know who was ever focused on that. Technically, that was, it's like putting a trash can in a parking spot or a dumpster in a parking spot. You're down a space. So once that went in, they were really down a space. And did they technically need relief? I guess they probably did. But I don't think at the time it was designed, there was, it was, and maybe even permitted, that it was known that space was there, or that ramp was there.
That's all I have.
Yes.
I'll just riff off that last question. A typical parking space needs to be 9 by 18. Kelly, is a parallel parking space any different in size?
No.
Okay. So I believe that it would be feasible then, assuming that these spots are 9 feet wide, that we would be able to get at least 3 parallel parking spaces in there. That seems reasonable, right? Would you agree? Just as far as showing them whether they're used or not.
Could you
Mathematically,
could
could
you
you
draw
show
them on
them?
a map? I think you could.
Okay.
I think you could.
All right, leaving parking aside for a moment, or maybe permanently. My question is, and I assume the answer will be yes because you're here, but I have to ask, has the school, the parish, the church explored every opportunity, every location that's available to them on the site that would not impact parking? Have you exhausted all possible locations that this trailer could go?
The answer is yes, and Mr. Nutt was prepared to explain in his testimony the process that they went through, the areas that they looked at, that it simply, didn't work. Yeah, so the answer is they have looked and there is no other area it could go.
And is that due to just connection to the school? Is it due to safety of moving students from one place to another?
That's correct. It is. It is due to the proximity. You can see from A2, there's a large playing field that the school has, which is on the other side of the church, past the rectory. To have a classroom there, it doesn't work. So the classroom would want to be somewhat proximate to the buildings on the site. And what you have that's immediately behind the school building, that double row of parking, you're into the rear yard setback there. There's a 75-foot rear yard setback. In fact, where we've placed the trailer is right up against that 75-foot and right up against the 50-foot setback on the side. So it's as close to the side as it can be without needing additional zoning relief. It's close to the rear. And then if you start moving it away, you're necessarily over parking, and then it would take up a lot of parking. We put it where it would take up the least amount of parking that's least used.
You anticipated my next question was, are there any were there any other setback concerns? Thank you for answering that without me having to ask you. But and then just so I'm crystal clear, on A3, and I'm not as familiar with the campus. What is this space? I'm kind of pointing to the area that looks like it's next to where it says the parish.
I think you're pointing to a lawn area that is in front of the rectory. Okay, it's sort of the either the side lawn or the front lawn, depending upon how you're viewing that rectory building. The rectory building is the smaller building there that's kind of along the driveway, and that lawn separates it from the front driveway.
And it's fair to say that's on the other side of the church as well, so it's disconnected from the school?
It's on the other side of the church, disconnected from the school. You've got trees there. You've got, what you would have would be then all of that building would be impervious surface rather than some of the building being impervious surface. I think the other factor, that temporary trailer that's been there, so if you're replacing it with a somewhat larger trailer, you're not really changing in any meaningful way what's going on in that corner of the property from what it is now.
And your testimony is that the current trailer is used as a faculty lounge, but the proposed is for classroom use?
2 student classrooms, yes.
Okay. And general classrooms or special, do you know?
No labs, just general classrooms. Originally, in the somewhat larger building, they were looking at a couple of bathrooms being included, but they moved away from that. It allowed to look at, they've got a little smaller building, and they don't get involved in all that plumbing that you would have been involved with those bathrooms.
I believe there was a photo that demonstrated the screening, because that was going to be the other thing I was going to ask about. And so I believe that is demonstrated in A4, the 4th photo.
It is, and you do get at least an overhead view of the canopies and trees. That can be misleading sometimes, but when you look out the side towards the single family in the direction of where you see the pool on the very left-hand side of that area, you can't see anything. That is just heavily vegetated on that side. So it's totally, the views are totally blocked, where there's a little bit more of a little bit of a filtered view as you look out the back towards Mill Ridge condominium.
And do you know, or has the church made those residents aware of this, or have you heard of any opposition?
I'm glad you asked. We did. We we sent letters, the church did, to all of those owners that were on the zoning board's mailing list. There was a meeting last week at the church. We had one neighbor who showed a very nice lady from Mill Ridge, and the one thing that she was interested in was stormwater runoff. And we explained to her what we were doing. We explained to her that part of the building actually overlapped in the parking, so it wasn't all new. She had thought in her mind that we might actually be expanding the parking lot, which was not the case. And I think when she found out that we were not expanding I attended that meeting, and as did Mr. Knott and Monsignor and Kelly. We were all there. It was at the parish center, right in the middle of the complex. And when she knew what we were doing, I think she felt very good about it.
Okay, great. I have no other questions at this time. Thank you so much.
Okay, I just had a couple. Fred, on E2, in the red box, the green dash mark showing presumably the stormwater connection to the management system that's proposed.
Yes.
I presume that's not just tracking where the water currently just runs across the surface, or is that intended to be surface runoff into a drain, or will it be piped over?
Good question. I think it's anticipated that will be a pipe that will pick up the roof water and put it into a system that would be running along the back there that hasn't been designed. Now, that would, I think, although it hasn't been designed, what we were talking about would require that you trench across the lot. And so there would be some paving repair that would be necessary where that pipe is going. So that is what is contemplated at the moment. And Mr. Newton, who is here, has patiently listened to all I have said about his plan, and I would like simply to ask him whether he agrees that my representations to you, particularly what has been discussed with respect to A2, is correct, or whether he wishes to correct anything I have said.
Sure.
Bob, if you could be sworn.
Thank you.
Hey, Bob.
Here, move over to the side, and then I'll.
Much better.
Bob, do you,
Now I can see it.
welcome. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And for the record, your name and address?
Robert Newton, I'm employed at 919 Conestoga Road, Bryn Mawr, PA, and it's Karen's Engineering.
Okay, and so were you the author of the original
Yes,
plan
I
here?
drafted that all myself, by myself.
And has there been anything that you've heard your counsel, or the counsel for the applicant mention with respect to A2 or any other of the exhibits that you would disagree with or feel needs clarification?
No, I think he was very accurate. The only thing I would want to clarify would be your last comment about how water would go from point A to point B, the infiltration system.
Great.
I definitely would not dump that onto the parking lot and let it run across and form an icing problem.
Okay.
Otherwise, everything else was absolutely correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Fred, just as a technical matter anyway, the stormwater would be reviewed by the township engineer, correct? I mean, Kelly,
If this board were to approve this application, permits would need to be obtained, which would include an analysis of the stormwater. And since Mr. Tavani has come and he prepared an exhibit, I'd just like him to authenticate that.
Sure.
Frank, if you could come up and be sworn.
I'd like everybody to participate.
Frank, how are you again? Good to see you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your name and address for the record, please.
Frank Tavani, Tavani, 248 Beach Hill Road in Wynwood, PA.
And Frank, we have
Well,
marked
let me
this.
just qualify him real quick. I mean, Frank, you've testified as an expert witness before this board, correct?
Yes,
And since your last time that you were qualified as an expert witness as a traffic consultant, correct?
yes.
Has your credentials changed or your licensure or your good standing in any jurisdiction been revoked, suspended, or otherwise limited?
Nothing has changed, and I am in good standing at this time.
So unless there's any objection, treat Frank as qualified for traffic, okay.
And Frank, you prepared the study that has been marked as A7
Yes.
as an exhibit. Would you give us a real quick overview of what you did and what you concluded?
Certainly. I visited the school on many occasions last week while the school was still in regular session and all grades were present. For most of the days I was visiting the school. I was there principally to observe traffic operations during drop-off in the morning and pick-up in the afternoon, since those tend to be the times that schools place the largest burden on the surrounding traffic network. I was observing maximum queue lengths, the impact, if any, they had on external traffic flows, and also seeking to determine if there were any opportunities to better leverage the available resources, which, as council pointed out, at this particular site are quite ample. The school is blessed in having the impervious coverage and large parking lot that it does. And what A7 shows, A7 being 3 pages of text and 10 figures, is that for the most part, the school is really no different than any other school. There is a concentration of activity for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, where there is a small spillover of the queue onto Highland Lane. However, Highland Lane is a rather sleepy roadway in the township. The very last page of A7 is an excerpt from the PennDOT Tire website, where you can sometimes be so fortunate as to locate average daily traffic volumes. In this case, Highland was one of them, and as I circled, the average daily traffic is quite low. It's about 800 vehicles per day. A K factor is a fancy way of saying during peak hours, how much of that average daily traffic is concentrated in one 60-minute window, and that's about 13% is what that means. But that's during typically commuter peaks. School peaks are usually different than commuter peaks, and schools benefit from that, especially during dismissal. There's less activity on the street, during school hours because they're not coincident with commuter peaks. So there might be, maybe 100 cars along Highland Avenue over the course of Highland Lane over the course of an hour, which is, 1 or 2 vehicles a minute. It's almost unnoticeable. So in short, what I observed is the existing activity at the school doesn't have any meaningful impact on public roads or intersections. As you heard from council, that's 350-ish students. The increase to 390, in my opinion, will not have a meaningful impact on that. Certainly not on levels of service, which I'm sure are A at present and will remain A if this sought relief is given. As council also mentioned, I did come up with some potential ways that the school could consider to better manage the existing queue and the future queue for that matter. Presently, the school they sort of split it up 50-50 with half of the activity in the front of the site and half in the rear. And, they might be able to just make that like a 60-40 split to better leverage the resources they have to the rear of the site. But, in my 29 years of doing this is a very unusual school, and the stacking that's available on site, it's quite uncommon.
And Frank, what were your observations of the parking lot those times you were there?
Yeah, the rear parking lot is hardly used at all. As you heard earlier tonight, the large majority, if not the entirety of staff parks along the front of the school, and that's really sufficient for its needs. The loss of 7 spaces, really the loss of 70 spaces, I don't think would have a meaningful impact on the school's operations.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So Fred, let me just ask a question. Frank's suggestions on ways to better manage the queuing to keep traffic from queuing on to Highland. Even if it's not a very busy road, it's still a public road that we'd
Right.
rather not have traffic queued on. Do you think your client is going to take some of the suggestions from Mr. Tamani seriously, or are they going to consider him in, or?
Well, let me say Kelly Seminara, the principal, is here this evening, and I think her answer would be that she would take them seriously and implement. They're common sense solutions, maybe unrelated to this application, but nevertheless a good suggestion that grew out of the traffic study that the code requires for an application of this type.
Yeah, as a fifth warder, my observations have been that along Highland at these peak times, it does seem very busy, and I was surprised to hear that there's very little going on the backside as far as parking, and so anything that would reduce the risk of queuing onto the street and creating bottlenecks, I think is a good idea. But
Totally agree, and I see the principal, Kelly, nodding affirmatively that they will be implemented.
So I wanted to, we've had cases before us where a school is in need of modular space on a temporary basis, and I don't believe that we've given anyone like a 5-year temporary period. I think it's been more like an academic year or a construction period when the construction was already getting ready to start. They typically would come to us in the spring with an expectation to start construction in the summer, but they need the space for like an academic year, or maybe an academic year and the summer before and the summer after, with the plan to remove the temporary things, which sometimes are in the side or rear yard setback or have other reasons that they need variances for. I'm not sure that a 5-year sort of temporary plan is fair. I'm just speaking for myself.
Right.
And obviously, the board will make a collective decision. And I know that Bill had already asked you the question, and I just wanted to say from my own observation and experience here, we run into these situations. I don't believe that we've done more than 2 years. And I think in the case that I'm thinking of, the 2 years was actually a little bit longer than we had done before, but I think we gave it. So I just point that out. I would like to know, the 40 new students, are these just 40 new kindergartners that, and I presume that, these are all applicants, new applicant students who were admitted. And I presume, like most schools, they have a challenge on managing their yield based on applications and acceptances and matriculations. So I'm just wondering, 40 is 10% roughly growth. Have there been studies about looking at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classes as they graduate out and the younger classes coming in, whether this growth in census really is very short-term? Did we get an influx of a bunch of 8th graders who'll be there for 1 year? Or are these coming in the young age and we know we're going to have a large class and have I know you can't guess how many applicants you're going to get for the kindergarten next year and the year after that, but trying to figure out whether this is, a large bump that's just going to have to move through and out, or whether it's stretched over a number of classes, and whether you see it coming pre-K right now.
Yeah. I will, John. If I could just say before you do, all the questions that you've just asked, I have asked and we have discussed because I think they're important. And John?
Sure. So, yeah, obviously great questions and ones that we've been discussing. So there's a couple things going on at the school. One is when the school opened a pre-K program about 7 years ago. So there was sort of, there was no pre-K program prior to that. A lot of those students, if you want to call them, sort of stuck in the school and sort of organically grew the enrollment at the school. So that occurred over a period of, let's say, 5 years. 2 years ago, everybody knows COVID hit, and there was a spike. So we were experiencing.
COVID spike or?
There was, well, right, there was a spike in enrollment. Excuse me, thank you.
Spike,
Yeah, no, I got you. So there was a little bit of organic growth, and that was being managed within the facility. And then a spike in growth happened just over the last 2 years, and that's when it was, collectively everyone sort of said, "Oh, wait a second. This is, the enrollment's going up a little bit more than we had anticipated, too quickly to really, look at the facilities that we have right now, get engineered plans, architect plans, bids out, and put a permanent, structure into place that would handle, an extra 40 children." So, a group that I'm involved in just, try to determine the best way to handle that situation. We thought that the modular classroom was the best way to handle that on a temporary basis. If not for focusing on this and actually having to apply for a zoning variance for it, which was a little bit of a surprise to us, but it is what it is. We would also have been focused on looking at the more permanent solution. So the same group that's working on this is supposed to have been working on the permanent thing. This has been a little bit of a temporary distraction for us, and again, that's all good. But in our next task, hopefully, after we're, hopefully if we're approved, if that goes through, our next task is to immediately focus on, do we need a permanent solution, and what is that permanent solution?
Okay.
John, if I can just ask, the question's been asked here on what's a reasonable time for this situation to go on.
To at least come back and talk to us again, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and we're open to whatever you think is feasible. I think that, in our minds, our group, just talking from a practical standpoint and maybe not specifically addressing your point, we think we need 2 school years to be able to get to the point where if we're going to construct something new, that construction starts. Because if we start today on a new construction plan reasonably, it could take, many months to design that. Then you go to bids. By the time you get under construction, it's over a year from now.
Right.
And any construction and I'm involved in the business, but any construction that I've ever seen, whatever you're doing, it takes a year. So all of a sudden you're 2 years out, and that's where you are. So our thought right now is that the modular classroom situation hopefully would be present for 2 years while we plan for other things.
And just so Bill doesn't feel like he's on an island, I agree with what Bill said, and I think 2 years would be more reasonable than 5.
Right.
Yeah,
And we're
and
happy to come back.
Yeah, and hopefully in 2 years, you come back with not only biddable design plans, you've got your financing or your development plans underway, and
Right.
it's ready to go. And we'll have a known construction schedule, and we'd at least have a chance then to say, leave them in place, take another year, take another 15 months. We know what the plan is now, see it through.
Right. Appreciate that. Yep. I think that makes sense.
While you're here, let me just say, on behalf of the applicant and all the people who have testified and everything that your counsel has said, once again, you would incorporate as if it were your own, all the testimony from others on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. Brett, anything else for your case in chief?
No, I think we've covered it, and your questions have, I think, brought all the issues to the surface, and thank you for them.
Okay, well, thank you.
So I would move for the omission of our exhibits
Yeah.
to the extent we need to do
Okay.
that, and
Yep, and we didn't, so we're at A 1 through 10 pursuant to the schedule of exhibits, all of which are hereby admitted to the record. Let's see, I will do the quick litany. Let me just ask whether there's anyone here in attendance from the community who received certified mail who wishes to testify in this case. Fred, I should have asked, you're, with the submission of your exhibits, you're done with your case?
it is. I was just going to make one more comment, and that was because of the need to get this in and still more permitting to be done, whatever the board could do to expedite its decision would be appreciated.
Understood, okay.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know if we'll be able to do, but we can try, and if not, I think that, I'm assuming that we're not gonna have, that any community testimony will be fairly short here, considering the number of people here, but we'll see how it goes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let me just finish. Anyone here who received certified mail who wishes to testify in this case? Frank, are you coming up to the podium? No. Okay. All right. Anyone here who got regular mail who wishes to testify? Anyone who didn't get anything in the mail about this case but wants to testify anyway? Okay, so, all right. So you brought a cheering section, not a position section. Okay, well, with that, we'll close the case, and we will attempt to render a decision as soon as we can, and might be tonight, might be, if it's not, it would be at the next meeting on July 7th, which I presume would give you enough time to get your modular order in and locked in.
Well,
Yes, right?
Sure, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Before administrative issue?
Yeah, let's, so thank you.
right, thank you
And you don't need to stay. We're going to do minutes and stuff like that, so if you want, you can, but, if you stay and then we don't get to the decision, I'd feel bad, so. But you can call Kelly in the morning.
Thank you. We'll leave you in peace.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good
Yep, so, Ed, administrative matters?
Yes, we had minutes prepared for June 2nd, I think?
Yep, June 2nd.
And I'd like to recommend that they be approved as distributed.
Okay,
I second that, yeah.
all right. I was not at the meeting, so I will have to abstain, so.
We pass it 2-0? Is that okay? Oh, Bill's-
Yeah, you get
Yeah,
nothing on
great,
a,
okay.
on a quorum of 3.
Okay.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? No, I'm abstaining since I wasn't there.
And there will be other minutes coming at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other housekeeping before we go into executive session briefly?
No.
No? Okay, so we'll go off the record for a couple.
And we're on.
Okay, we'll resume the zoning hearing board meeting of June 16, 2022. With respect to application, excuse me, let me just get my numbers right. 22-15, Ed, are you prepared to vote?
Yes, I am.
Jesse, are you prepared to vote?
I am.
As am I. Jesse, you want to handle the
Yes.
decision?
With regards to case Z22-15, I would vote to approve the requested temporary variance with the following conditions. This variance expires on July 1st, 2024. The applicant, if the applicant wishes to extend the variance, they shall return to this board in the July 2024 meeting to provide an update on the need for a continued temporary trailer or to provide plans for a permanent facility for the board's review. 2, stormwater will be managed in accordance with township code. And 3, the project will be completed in accordance with the notes of testimony.
And installed within,
Yeah, the temporary, and 4, it will be installed within 1 year.
Ed?
I concur.
As do I. That application's approved 3-0. And with that, unless I hear any objection, we're adjourned.
That's good.
Okay, thank you, Arlene.
Thanks.
All right, we're off the record.